Hi there folks, welcome to episode 14 of the 1 Hour Broadway. A little bit of a change up from us this week. We're going to discuss TNA for a good portion of the show. They had Slammiversary this weekend, 13th edition, and their first pay-per-view in a good while. So we'll talk about that in some depth, and then we'll move on to WWE discussions, talking about Raw and the build-up to Battleground. So there's no better place to start than with Slammiversary itself, and I think we'll let the resident TNA expert here take it away first. So Maxie, Slammiversary, the B pay-per-view for TNA?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much a B pay-per-view. Yep, you've obviously got Bound for Glory as your main one, and then I'd say your two B ones are definitely Slammiversary and Lockdown. Basically, I say there's not a massive pay-per-view or any sort of pay-per-view in a long time, so if there was going to be something, it would have been Slammiversary, especially with Lockdown just essentially being on normal
just a TV special these days, really.
Special, yeah. But I feel it was an opportunity for TNA. There may be a lot of talents that people kind of have seen in WWE or I've just heard from in the independents, and never really had a chance to see them on the massive stage, but on a pay-per-view kind of stage and on that kind of live environment. So it was a good opportunity for a lot of guys to impress. Like everybody, obviously on our side of the border's obviously seen a lot of good things from Drew Galloway. So it was a good chance for people to see what he could do. We've all heard about this great rise of EC3, Ethan Carter III, how he would cope in this kind of situation. And then just giving guys like say Jesse Goddard's and Rob E some good time as well. So it was really an interesting card to put together. Bit disappointed a lack of title matches and whatnot.
The lack of Kurt Angle, to be honest.
Lack of Kurt Angle. Yep. I feel if maybe had a title match in here or there, there'd been a lot more at stake and a lot more matches meaning something. But overall, it was an interesting card to put together.
I definitely agree. That's the one thing I think that took away from it was Kurt Angle not being on it. I mean, since 2007, he's been the guy in TNA. This would be like... It's not like John Cena missing a pay-per-view, but it's like if WWE had like John Cena, Randy Orton, I basically see if they two miss a pay-per-view, it's noticeable. But at least in the last couple of years, WWE's moved away, brought in the Shield, and they've instantly had three guys that they can stick in there. Whereas TNA in the last year have did that with EC3. But when he's in the feud with Angle, then Angle not being in the pay-per-view is still a big noticeable difference there. A big noticeable hole. But other than that, personally I thought they put on a good show. A good wrestling show. And I think that's something that people sometimes forget, that TNA does wrestling. They don't do sports entertainment like the WWE. And people are always too quick to try and compare them when you should be looking at the differences as opposed to the similarities. But I felt that the wrestling was the strongest point in the show. And even the weakest matches weren't that bad. So overall, I was actually impressed with it. It's the first TNA pay-per-view I've ever stayed up to watch like I do with every WWE pay-per-view. So for that perspective, it kept my interest the entire time. I didn't plan on watching the whole 3 hours, and it was over and done with before I knew it. So for that perspective, I was actually impressed with it, because I didn't have any expectations, or not even expectations, I just didn't have any notion of what I should expect. So for that, I was actually impressed by the majority of the show.
I wasn't too sure what to make of it, because it's been probably a year since I've properly tuned into the storylines every week to know who was fighting who, and probably even longer since the last time I stayed up and watched a pay-per-view or went into any sort of show not knowing what was going to happen, because most times you'd read the spoilers and whatnot, and that would kind of give me an incline to watch it. It's certainly weird seeing certain wrestlers portraying certain gimmicks right now, completely different to what they've previously been. Likes of Eric Young. Eric Young was the Pied Piper, the fans' favourite, and now look at him, he's like a complete psychopath. So just seeing the kind of changes in character was quite interesting. Sorry, but the fact you've got some good characters developed, you're seeing people like Ken Anderson, and I'm like, you're literally still using the same gimmick from WWE in 2006-7. It's like, have you done nothing to freshen it up? But apart from that, it was interesting to see, obviously, the evolution of both bro men. Robbie was obviously at one point doing the thing with Robbie T, and you're not on the list, bro, which was quite entertaining. But it was good to see that he's always, when I'd watched it, always been a heel. So it was interesting for that dynamic to see him as a babyface, and I thought the crowd liked him. I'm not too sure on the music right enough, but it was interesting. And just to see people like Magnus get a long match as well against somebody that I'd seen maybe just up to before he won the title, and then that's when I'd kind of stopped watching it. So it's good to see all these guys getting opportunities. I just feel, when you mention obviously with Kurt Angle being missing and a couple of guys not being there, I think it does show that there is maybe a lack of star power within the company. Because you say you're losing, obviously Kurt Angle, you're losing Jeff Hardy as well, massive draw. I don't feel Matt Hardy's anywhere near the size of draw that Jeff is.
That's the thing, it's especially the way that TNA have utilised them as well. There's a way you can utilise Matt Hardy, and Ring of Honor did it, and it was brilliant. And it was, I don't know if it was a quote-unquote draw for Ring of Honor, but it could definitely be used in a better role with TNA. And of course, obviously, Jeff's untimely injury is part and parcel with how he's been booked at this point in time. So, but I mean, it's a good point you bring, because a lot of these characters have either drastically changed or have stagnated and are the same thing. And that's why out of everybody in the card, Eric Young's probably my favourite. Because out of everybody on that roster, he's the guy that I think that works the WWE style. He's a sports entertainer. He's a brilliant character, and he's 100% invested in whatever his character is at the time. The last time that I ever watched TNA, like semi-regularly at least, was when they were doing the thing where him and ODB were the Knockouts tag champions, and it was just ridiculous, but you bought it because his character and how he portrayed it. So I really enjoyed the progression of his character, especially into obviously the hot shotted him the title as a response to Daniel Bryan being the WWE champ, it seemed. But then that quickly changed into him losing the title again and sort of evolving into this maniacal character and constantly trying to break Bobby Roode's neck with a pile driver and stuff like that. And that was a nice wee storyline. But I think he's a great character, and he's somebody that if they'd maybe got behind sooner and hadn't jobbed him out for like 6 years, he's somebody that they could actually be pushing as the face, somebody that's up challenging Kurt Angle. But when you've got somebody in a certain position for 6 years, you can never turn that around. And I think that's the same can be said for a lot of the guys on the roster, which is why I don't actually see it as such a bad thing that a lot of people are actually leaving the company at this point in time.
What I will say is with Eric Young as well is the guy can work both greatly as a babyface and a heel. Like every character he's had, whether it been heel or babyface, nothing's ever been the same. Like initially you had Team Canada, good heel gimmick there. Then he turned into the fans' favourite Pied Piper in with the crowd and all that. They loved that. Then he slowly merged into the World Elite. In fact, I can't mind how this will work in the timeline, but he also had the Superhero Squad when it was him, Shark Boy, Super Eric, but it was completely different. Folk loved it. Then you had the babyface run to the title, and then you've got this just sick, twisted guy you've got now, but completely different from him in the World Elite. And I just felt folk like him's just completely just changed his character up completely, and it's worked. Definitely,
and that's why I think it's actually quite interesting. Whereas compared to another guy in the King of the Mountain match, Bobby Roode, who has essentially been the same character, but just showing different sides to the character as opposed to completely changing. But he's done it really well, and I'm really disappointed that he's a guy that isn't the face of their company at this stage. I mean, obviously they had that long run when he was the champion. He's the longest reigning champion. Had that great feud with James Storm as well, and also that led to James Storm getting the title for a short period of time. But it really just seemed like he's a guy, like, you looked at the TNA roster, and outside of Kurt Angle, you didn't really see anybody that you're like, oh, he should be in WWE, he should be on a bigger platform. And I thought for years Bobby Roode was that guy. And it just seems like he's got to that stage and he's been there for like 2 years, and then they've just dropped him down the card.
I think he's another guy just too long before they pull the trigger on him. You know, again, going back to the Eric Young thing where he was this babyface, he was the heel. And some of the stuff that they two had together, this would have been maybe 06, 07. I think they had Miss Brooks involved in it as well. But some of the gimmicks were just, some of the angles were just tremendous. And like, it was some of the best stuff I watched on Impact at that time. And I just felt, this is like the lower card. It's like, this guy, he's literally the full package. I just think he's unfortunate at that stage now where he's kind of 37, 38. So I feel it's either going to be TNA getting really behind him, or he's going to stagnate here, or maybe it would be best doing what most others are doing and leaving.
Jumping ship out, even like Samoa Joe, that'd be. And that's the other thing as well that people seem to have forgot about, is that WWE and NXT, just to go there for a second, have made this sort of they've not made a commitment, but they've made sort of a statement about how NXT will be touring in the future, and that they'll be looking to bring in more guys like Rhino and Samoa Joe. And I don't know if that's also directly basically looking for guys that are leaving TNA, but those are the guys that fit the mould, guys that have been on television, so have name value, but in the meantime have worked a lot, not just with TNA, but obviously working independent shows as well. And obviously WWE aren't stupid and would recognise a guy like Bobby Roode has a lot of talent, even if they just use it for their tour and NXT shows. But I mean, definitely he's the kind of guy where they got behind him, but it didn't seem like enough. It's kind of like the situation in WWE for years where they get behind somebody, but there's always John Cena above them. So that seems to have been what's happened with Bobby Roode and Kurt Angle and TNA.
It could be a case of trying to get him to Kurt Angle's level, and then it's like you get him to a certain level, it's like, but we'll never see him as equal as Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's always got to be TNA's main guy, and unfortunately for TNA, it gets to the stage like there's going to be after Kurt Angle, just like WWE is going to be after John Cena, and I think they've worked it perfectly. There's going to be guys there certainly after John Cena, but you don't have that elite figure like TNA like after Kurt Angle, and I feel they're definitely going to struggle there. But I think get back to just obviously guys that would fit that WWE NXT mold perfectly. Austin Aries, 100%. I feel he's another guy they invested in a little bit, but I do feel sometimes it's like, but you're a wee guy, you're a small guy, you could easily do X Division, and I just feel sometimes stuff like that kind of hampered them. But again, so many guys that they invested a little time into, and then they just kind of went, nah, we don't want you. Chris Sabin.
Aye.
Run the X Division champion. Oh, bye, see you.
I'll tell you what I think, right? This is just, we will, bear ways folks, we will get to Slammiversary, right? But just because it's the first time we've really had an at-length discussion about TNA. But the one thing that I always thought TNA should have done a long time ago, right? In this era where everybody's crying out for WWE to have a cruiserweight division, like heavyweight division, something like that, TNA could have easily made the choice at some point, like one of the times when Angle went down with injury or a DUI or had his issues with pills or whatever and wasn't on television. Post Hogan Bischoff, of course, they could have made the choice to make the X Division title their main title. Obviously, traditionally in wrestling, the heavyweight championship is your main title. I don't see why they couldn't have made the X Division championship appear to be their main title, especially when all these guys like Aries and that had been the champ, and then they're going, aye, but I'll give up the X Division title to have a shot at the heavyweight title. It's undermining one of your titles. On the other hand, go the opposite way, have one of your guys go, nah, I'm the X Division champion, that's more important. Kind of like what WWE are doing now with the NXT title and John Cena with the US title. If they'd have went with that kind of storyline, have the X Division champion prevail and disregard the heavyweight title, then you don't need to get rid of the heavyweight title, but make it clear that the X Division's your main title. Have that main event shows. Have guys like that can easily be in the X Division scene but are main event level guys like Jeff Hardy. I never understood why that's not what they done with Jeff Hardy at some point. Like, I mean, I'm assuming he's been the X Division champion. I'm not entirely sure.
I don't think he has.
Right?
I really don't.
But, like, if a guy comes across to you as, like, he could be your X Division guy because his style of wrestling, it's not the same as their quote-unquote high flyers, because he's more like a risk-taking type of wrestler. But Jeff Hardy would have been perfect for that. Launch him as your X Division champion, who is arguably more popular than anybody else in the company. Then that instantly separates you from everybody else. Because of the title, you're going to have exciting matches all the time. You're going to be able to get away from somebody like Kurt Angle being your star attraction, because he can still be the heavyweight champion, but make it clear that your X Division title is your main title. I mean, it's quite easy to position a title above another one. Just because the heavyweight title doesn't mean automatically that's your main championship. It's only that because of the actions on television, on your programme, and storyline.
It's funny you mentioned Jeff Hardy becoming an X Division champion or whatnot. When he re-debuted in 2010, he re-debuted at the end of the Steel Asylum match, which was every X Division wrestler. Yet, I'm pretty sure, not 100% sure, but I'm fairly confident he hasn't been X Division champion. But that could be a programme there. He had a small brawl with Homicide at the time. But that would have been perfect, did you say? Perfect size to fit that kind of level of work.
Well, that's the thing, but Jeff Hardy's obviously a bigger guy than people think he's X Division, but obviously you've had Samoa Joe there. So, I don't know, I just feel like it's one of the things, like if TNA had actually thought outside the box, they could have easily went with something like that, and it would have been a distinct difference. I'm not saying, obviously it seems like a bit of a jump to go, right, we've got a heavyweight title, but X Division title's going to main event or pay-per-views. Obviously that's a bit of a jump, but there's no reason over a space of a year you can make that your story and build to the X Division title being, even build to it like how they had Joe against Kurt Angle with the titles on the line, but make it clear that your X Division title is the bigger title because that champion wins the match. It seems quite easy to me. Obviously it would need an interesting story, interesting characters, but I feel that's something that TNA should have done a long time ago, or at least even considered, instead of being at the stage now where we're just going to talk about Slammiversary. It's basically a jobber championship at this point. Considering that for the last 13 years, it's probably the biggest thing that anybody knows about TNA is its X Division.
Another thing with like the X Division title is like with their booking, it felt like for months, especially leading up to Destination X, they'd have like a jobber champion, or no jobber champion, but no like a massive name. And oh crap, that guy's got a chance to cash in for a little title shot. We better put in somebody with bigger name value. So such like a week before, I think twice it's happened now that an Austin Aries has won it, just because like, oh, we can't risk, I don't know, just for example, Tigre Uno or Manic getting this big massive match with massive implications.
That seems, but again, that's one of the things that comes across with TNA as well. A lot of the time, it feels as if sometimes that they plan too far ahead, and then something always tends to sabotage it, or they're just sort of a WWE style booking on the fly. But anyway, all of that aside, we went to Slammiversary. We started with the X Division match, triple threat elimination, which identical to what happened on Impact last week. Although that was for the vacant title, obviously Tigre Uno won the title against Grado and Loki. Here he's defending it against Manic and I was going to DJZ, that is his name. A terrible name, but he's a guy that he was one of those indie wrestlers, as Zem Ion, who stood out because he's looking like that. Was a great wrestler, and he seems to have been, I'm not saying ruined by his character, but his character doesn't work, and you hope that he ventures away for that. But in this match, he did get to show what he's good at. Great high-flying wrestler. So is Manic, so is Tigre Uno, and I thought they put on a really captivating match. For me, it was a good match, and I bought into everything they done, but it seems like to a lot of people that have watched TNA for a while, that this was just three jobbers competing over a championship. But I enjoyed the match. I think it went for like 10, 11 minutes, and I was totally engrossed in it. So
it was your typical X Division match. You know, it was obviously a massive spot fest. I just think the fans in this one weren't really cheering any of the wrestlers. They just wanted to see the spots. Meanwhile, we'd have a previous X Division match in years gone by, and it'd be like they'd still be like emotionally attached and invested to the wrestler, which I think if anything, the only one that really invested in was DJZ probably. But I mean, you can definitely see with him there's a lot of potential there, which I feel hasn't been tapped into, and I feel like he could be a really, really good wrestler, sports entertainer, depending on an environment, if he stays in TNA or if somewhere else decides to utilise his talents. But it was a good match. It was what it was. It's certainly not the X Division of old. I don't feel the characters are exactly there. You've literally got a guy that's wearing a mask and wears fangs. That's literally what it was coming across. The Manic character, I'm not too sure what the hell's happened here, to be honest. I was aware it was Suicide at one point, and they've morphed him into this, and not too keen on the mask. But no, that aside, the match was okay. The character's dodgy, and it was a decent opener.
Definitely. The thing that I liked about it was you still get some unique things. Like Manic does like I can't remember what they called it, but basically does like the Spider-Man thing and grabs the ropes and that. That's unique. That's a great thing. More things like that would be a great addition to TNA as well, as opposed to just the same old shit and matches that we see everywhere else. Which really was the whole point of the X Division, let's be honest. Tigre Uno's fine, but it's hard to be behind a guy that's only had the title for a week, or not even a week, for 4 days. But obviously he's a great wee wrestler, so you can see that they clearly want to get behind him, winning the title, then having a successful defence to open a pay-per-view is always a great sign. I think one of the things sometimes people forget about DJZ is obviously that I can't remember, it was an illness he had at some point, like 2 years ago. So he was ill, he was off television for a while, and then and obviously come back and joined the Bromans.
The whole thing with Jesse Sorensen as well, when he did his neck, that obviously took him off TV for a bit, because he was literally nearly paralysed, the guy, as we kind of obviously traumatised it.
It was obviously quite horrible, just obviously stuff like that happened. So, but then it was also after that, then he had an illness as well, so maybe that's a reason why they never fully got behind him as well. But no, it was a great wee opener. Just a shame that it's 3 guys that seem to be glorified jobbers at this point. But a guy like Tigre Uno's only been in the company for like 18 months, so it's not like they've totally ruined him at this stage. Manic is a character that's flip-flopped so much. Obviously, most recently was part of James Storm's Revolution stable. So, interesting to see what happens with him going forward. And that's the case with a lot of people on the card, to be quite honest.
Do you feel the X Division match, also I know you'd been glamoring for Grado to win it, but do you feel it really missed somebody like a Rockstar Spud in it? Because the fans obviously really liked him.
It missed a proper babyface in the match. Like, Tigre Uno is like, he wrestles like a proper babyface, but he's not got the connection to the audience at this stage. Another guy's just high-flying wrestlers, that's really all there. There's nothing more to their characters, obviously. In the match, out of the match, is irrelevant at that point. But then Tigre Uno was like clearly trying to connect with the fans, that's fine. But whereas somebody like Rockstar Spud, who has been a main feature on their shows for a while, probably going back over 2 years since he won the first boot camp, so he's been a mainstay of television, wasn't on the pay-per-view. Somebody like Mark Andrews, who won the British boot camp, he had a short-term storyline, obviously, with Rockstar Spud and Jeremy Borash, obviously going against EC3 and Tyrus a while back. Don't know when the last time he was on Impact. So, I mean, that's somebody else that could have been in that match as well, that they've had added a bit more interest. Considering that's our thing as well, that this was on free television in the UK, so I expected more UK talents to be on the show.
What I found quite funny is during Impact and then before the show, they had obviously the promo type thing with Grado hyping up the show, but we all know he's like back in Glasgow, or back in Scotland at least, because they'd like tweeted saying, "Oh, I'm at the airport," which I just feel when you're having this guy hype up, he's going, "Oh, Grado's going to be on it," and then they would have been seeing Grado.
I felt that was a bit short-sighted by them. I mean, if you'd have put, they could have done a different type of match. I mean, they could have just done a multi-man 140 a finish as opposed to the elimination. But I mean, if you'd have stuck a Mark Andrews in there, a Grado in there, like, I mean, they've got they've got the 6-sided ring. Have a 6-man match, have some concept with that. I don't know, but they obviously didn't want to do that. We also having the King of the Mountain match on the card, which is fine. But I felt having UK talents on the show would have really helped it from our point of view, obviously. But then again, I'm sure that would have helped them draw stronger viewership on Challenge here in the UK, which is in reality their biggest market.
I'm not too sure if this still stands, but I think at one point they changed about every X Division match has to be a triple threat match for some reason. Like, everyone has to be a freeway. So, like, I know it's a silly rule. Like, why not have one-on-one matches? They don't have to be complete spot fest, and I think that's what they're kind of going for. When you could have maybe, I don't know, like just came back years and years ago, like an AJ Styles Samoa Joe Classic. You don't get that anymore, which I think is maybe something they're kind of missing. It's just like, we've got 3 guys now, have to use spots.
That's certainly that is what the match was. But anyway, I thought it was a decent opener as well. So it really set the pace for the show. Tigruno retains after pinning Manic, and well, actually pinned both of them following his corkscrew senton off the top. Moving on, we had Jesse Godders against fellow former Broman Robbie E, and Robbie E cut a promo before the match, backstage, sort of making it almost too obvious that he's no longer the bro that he was before. The second half of his promo was actually really, really good, really impassioned promo about how he's a man, blah blah. Just and they changed these ways, etc., and making it clear that he's a babyface, and that was really good. It could have done with the over the top bit at the start of it. That was fine. And Jesse Godders, obviously, he had a promo in ring before the match. Sort of it just went on a bit too long. Clearly just tried to drum up a bit of heat before the match started. I did like his persistence about telling the crowd to look at me now. That was alright. I was into that. That set a tone for doing stuff like that during the match as well, so that was fine. Then obviously we had Robbie sort of interrupting the promo. Seemed like it a minute or two later than it could have been. Impromptually starting the match. Promptly starting the match even, outside the ring. I thought it was fine. Actually, I'd never seen Jesse Godders in a match before. First in-ring stuff I'd seen him was actually in the build-up, the wee package they showed before the match, which was really good as well. I just felt like it didn't seem as intense enough for 2 guys that seemingly hate each other. But I thought it was a solid match. Maybe gave it a wee bit too long. But they put across quite well throughout the match that Jesse Godders was a bigger guy, stronger guy. He was a bit more dominant. But then Robbie was just a bit plucky and pulls out the win.
I think with Jesse Goddard, it's certainly somebody where they've put a lot of effort and a lot of time into him, and I just think he's still nowhere near the finished package, but they feel it's another learning curve from another learning experience, and they feel that Robbie's obviously, he's been about everywhere, and he's the kind of guy that could help elevate him. But I mean, they've done well, told the story well. The vignette package kind of gives an idea of where the feud had been and where it was going now. It's a good opportunity there for Jesse to get some heel heat. Obviously, not losing as easily as he did in the promo, and that he was losing with roll-ups every time. But a good match, and I feel it's 2 guys that definitely, if TNA is there for a long time, can certainly be his future with a couple of feuds in that. So a good match overall, and hopefully the start of something. Again,
just an issue with like them being a tag team for a year or 2, and I mean, I think obviously they were involved in the whole thing with that the Amazing Race program in America as well, and I think that factored into their split and stuff. Just feels like, again, a bit too low rung for a long time. Because really you need to have your tag teams elevated before splitting them, as opposed to having them split at their lowest point. But I mean, the match was fine. And I feel, if anything, the vignette before the match told the story as well as it needed to be, so the match could have been shorter. But I mean, babyface gets the win, so you've got to imagine that Jesse will be coming after him in the weeks to come. Moving on, we had Matt Morgan comes out to face Bram and changes their match to a street fight, which was fine, although it clearly played into Bram's hands, so I didn't understand that from Matt Morgan's perspective, other than just being really confident in his own abilities. Still looks like a beast. There's not really anybody in wrestling in American television anyway that looks like him. A guy that's 7 foot tall and is in proportion and looks like a beast. I mean, and that's the thing as well, and he's never really been noted as being a great worker, but him and Bram had a solid match. Done well, utilising the stuff around the ring, under the ring, without being too gory or using too much stuff. Obviously, because there's another match like that to come. Just felt like it was too obvious that Bram was going to win anyway, just with the storyline. But it's good to see that Bram's a guy that they're getting behind. Obviously, he's another British guy. Not really known for being on the British scene though. But no, solid match. Thought there might have been a bit more violence in it. I just mean, like, this whole Bram character, that's his whole thing. It just seemed like to have the finish with the low blow into the DDT was a bit cheap. I mean, could have utilised the weapons a bit better in the finish of the match, considering it was meant to be a street fight. But I mean, that was alright. Just putting over the fact that Bram's always going to get the job done, despite being shot by Matt Morgan returning on Wednesday in Impact.
Is it bad? This is probably one of the matches I was most looking forward to. Just because I've always liked Matt Morgan, and like, I know you say not the greatest worker, but just as you say, has that size and the look and presence about him where he's like, this guy like could rip up most shit, and I just think the carbon footprint is just a thing of beauty, just because he's that tall. Bram as well, I've not seen a lot of his work, but anytime I've seen it, been impressed. Any vignettes I've seen, looks like a really intriguing character, so I was intrigued to see what they brought. You say solid match. Say the finish was, or the street fight stipulation was brought in just purely to kind of maybe protect Matt Morgan a little bit, even though it was literally a one-time thing. He's stressed, that's all he was back for. But a good match. It utilises the fact that Bram continues to use the same weapon for the turnbuckle. Again, I think maybe a few spots weren't necessarily great, and a few spots could have been utilised better. But I feel it was a good way in showing that Bram not only is beating kind of former guys that are kind of maybe over the hill, but former guys that are kind of still a good bit in name value. Because Matt Morgan, let's be honest, you see, if you beat a guy like that, that's impressive.
Aye.
And I feel it's definitely another step in elevating him as a character.
Well, that's the thing. It's all about, people sometimes forget that it's really getting the character over that will help the company, as opposed to just signing guys with name value. I mean, the whole reason that WWE went for when they were WWF went from the shits 1995 to being the biggest company by the end of 98 into 99 was characters. Obviously booking and their angles and that play a big part, but it's the characters that draw the people in. And a guy like Bram, if they build him up for long enough to be such a beast of a heel and eventually give him the title, then that's something you can build off of. I mean, I know they're doing it with EC3 now, but I don't think he's as hateable as somebody like Bram would be with a proper push behind him. Since he definitely, it's kind of funny, because EC3 totally reminds you of John Cena, I think, when you look at him. He's too clean cut, looking too much like a babyface, looking to not be a babyface. But then again, so starting him as EC3 as a heel is the best thing. But Bram's the kind of guy that you don't ever see turn a babyface, so he's a guy that you can really build off of. Just depends how well they book him going forward as well, I suppose. But if they continue with the legend thing, they're going to run out pretty soon, the guys from the face.
It's very true, because half of them have either jumped ship or they've already brought them back for other storylines in the last couple of months. But no, it's certainly a step in with the first couple of matches. A couple of guys are looking to invest in their future, and they're hoping that over time these are guys that can be in every show, be in every pay-per-view or live event, and hopefully draw people in.
Well, moving on, this was followed up by was going to say arguably, but not even arguably, just the match of the night by far. Aries against David Richards. Just another one of the ones where you should be having. It just felt like because of that. And actually, before we talk about the match, the whole reason that TNA is in the situation they are this week with their tapings is because of Destination America. So TNA had it planned out that they were going to do tapings from. So obviously this is on the Sunday. It had been airing on the Friday night. So they would have done initially is they're taping on the Friday for the live show. Saturday they had some meet and greet thing arranged, like some like VIP dinner. Then Sunday it would have been the pay-per-view, and then they've taped Monday and Tuesday and possibly Wednesday as well. So that would have been fine. There'd have been nothing spoiled, and they'd have had Kurt Angle against EC3 for the title on this show. They would have had the Wolves against the Dirty Heels for the tag titles on this show. They could have even had some more meaningful exhibition matches, well, you'd imagine. But TNA were moved to Wednesday nights on Destination America, which meant they had to change their taping schedules. So, fair enough. They've been put into this situation by Destination America, and they've made the best of a bad situation. Beyond that, though, I liked what they'd done here, and they had Aries against Richards with the winner choosing the stipulation for the final match in the best of 5 series between the Wolves and the Dirty Heels. So I mean, at least there was something at stake, which was different from a good few of the matches on the card. So that set it apart straight away. And also just having 2 upper level performers. I mean, David Richards, fair enough, has only been in the company for a short amount of time. I don't even know what he's been doing for that whole entire time where Eddie Edwards was injured. I'm assuming he was just having matches here and there with no real meaning behind them. So that's the thing. I know he was on shows. I just don't know what he was doing. But anyway, that led into this great wee series that they had from their debut on Destination America, however long ago that was now, January. So they've built up this best of 5 series since then. Obviously, the climax is going to be on Wednesday, but this match is brilliant. Pretty much what you expect for Austin Aries every time he has a match. But then again, it was great to see David Richards shine in a singles environment as well.
I feel one thing I did like about it is, like as you say, there was something at stake. But the fact is, the way they'd hinted at it, there was going to be unpredictability. Sure, like we all knew, somebody was going to choose a stipulation, and if you'd read the spoilers, you know what that stipulation was. You didn't know who picked it, but it could have been either guy. So, I mean, it was good to see 2 guys that everybody knows can bring it in the ring. Just, can they bring it in a kind of, not in an ROH kind of style, can they bring it in a TNA style? But I thought they'd done it excellently. Very good match. I love the wee bit at the end where you get a bit of Austin Aries' humour. You're like, I'm going to pick the match. It's going to be the match everybody wants to see. It's going to be a bra and panties match. And the expression for Bobby Roode just sold it as well. Like, what? But no, just very good. Good match between the 2 guys. It'll be interesting to see the different stipulations on it. We've had one of them, and certainly on either TNA or WWE anytime I can remember.
And that's the thing as well. Like, even though it's been taped, the appeal of having those 4 guys in a 30-minute Iron Man match, what's not to like? So for that perspective, cool. And there was something built in, so you didn't know what was going to happen. Obviously, so there was still a bit uncertainty there. But I mean, I don't really know what to say about the match because it was just, I didn't take any notes because I was that glued to it. Like I couldn't actually look away from the screen. Just I felt like it was they'd done it like a Ring of Honor match, but for every second and third big spot there would have been a high risk spot. They replaced that with either Aries just being really dirty and running out the ring and have it be chased by Richards, or they would have some really good comeback spots for David Richards in the match as well. I felt as if there was maybe sometimes there was a wee bit too much stalling in the match, but the only other thing that took away from it was the finish. Bobby Roode obviously came down to cause a distraction. Eddie Edwards makes a save, but then Dave Richards still eats a roll up for Aries to get the win. But no, I thought that was great as well. Just a shame that Austin Aries is on his way.
Massive shame, massive blow at the company. He's somebody that just is a world-class athlete. He is really good what he does, Definitely when he was in the X Division, brought prestige to the X Division title, certainly helped elevate a lot of guys there, and certainly didn't look at a place in the main event scene. I'm really intrigued to see where he goes from here. A lot of certainly going to be no shy options, but in case they probably Ring of Honor, I think NXT will look at him. It'll be definitely interesting to see, even if it is wrestling he pursues. It could be a lot of other things. Obviously, I know he's acting and all that, so
well,
definitely
what he signed up with an acting agency. So as opposed to having the usual free agent wrestler being represented by Bill Burns, so he's obviously went a different way. But a guy with his talent, you hope that he stays in wrestling anyway. Then we had the Knockouts match. The match itself wasn't great, but I like the story that they're telling. Kong comes back and Taryn Terrell's the champion and clearly knows that she's got no chance of beating Kong. So brings the dollhouse together, and this match clearly portrayed that she's still terrified at the prospect of having to defend her title against Kong. I did think it wasn't strange, but I thought it was peculiar that they had Brooke pick up the win. But I mean, the biggest downside of the dollhouse is that they can't really wrestle that well. It doesn't. It's not that I'm not comfortable with them wrestling. It's just it seems so disjointed at times. Like, fair enough, when they're in there with Kong, she should just be throwing them about, but it doesn't look natural enough. Like, it looks too much like. It looks too fake. That's the best word for it. It doesn't look as legit enough as it should be when Kong's in there. But then again, when it comes to Kong against Taryn Terrell, she'll sell. So, and she'll make Kong look as dominating as she should be. But I just don't feel as if she looked dominant enough in this match for her stature compared to the four women round about her. But then again, they give Brooke the win, so that elevates her a wee bit as well. Puts her closer to title contention. It seems quite obvious that the dollhouse won't be lasting after this anyway, with the Taryn sort of running down her teammates or her stablemates at the end of the match. I don't actually think Taryn even tagged in, did she? Did she maybe come in and hit a cheap shot at some point as well? I just noticed that she spent most of the match just perched up on the turnbuckle. But that's fine. For character development, I'm all for that. That's just going to draw even more heat on yourself when eventually you have to actually meet your maker.
I think you've pretty much summed up well there, completely what that match was all about. It was never going to be a 5-star classic, It was never going to be Meltzer giving this one 5 stars, but this was always going to be about the development of characters in it, and basically showing that Taryn Terrell's like, crap, I really can't beat Kong. As you say, sat up perched on the apron for most of the match. It's like, you do this, you do that, and making Jade and Marty Bell try and take apart Brooke or Awesome Kong. The thing I think is weird is I hadn't heard a lot about Marty Bell before she'd signed, so I had no expectations, but I'd heard a lot of good things about Jade or Mia Yim, and I don't think I really saw that in that match. I feel she was hitting kicks, but it was like the kind of style of that Hideo Itami's had in WWE. He's so used to hitting these stiff kicks, and I felt like when he kicks now, it's obviously a wee bit better, but when Jade was hitting kicks, obviously she's got a stiff style as well. They looked completely fake. It looked like she was tapping her.
That's the thing, she just looked like a fish out of water, like she's not adapted to her style to what's expected from her in TNA. That's probably the best way to put it. That's why it looks fake when you're half-arsing something. And I'm not saying she's half-arsing it, but when you're pulling out a kick halfway through, it doesn't look authentic in the slightest. And I mean, you've seen heard on Jericho's podcast this week, he was talking to Big Show, and Big Show was talking about how difficult it is to make his punch look good. And I mean, you've got a million times more control over a punch than you have a kick. So you're going to need to put some serious effort into making your kicks look authentic. And I'm not saying that she's not done that, it just doesn't come across like she has.
I mean, if there's one good thing with Mia Yim is it's just her age. She's got plenty of time to learn and adapt, and I feel maybe it just takes the time. At the same time she learns to get her character over, at the same time she learns to kind of work more the TNA style rather than the indie style. But it's certainly going to be interesting in the Golden Knockouts division, if they do go with a split, where that leaves Taryn Terrell. And of course you've still got other folk kicking about, like say Gail Kim and stuff like that, what happens with them as well. So it'll be interesting to see.
It will be indeed. Biggest bonus for the knockouts over the WWE Divas anyway. A lot more arse on show, and I'm all for that. Also, don't know who took the pin in that match, by the way. It was one of the Dollhouse though. They followed this up with the unsanctioned match, which seems like a bit of an oxymoron. We'll assume that TNA is unsanctioned, just the same as every other wrestling company, just means there's no rules. So basically it's a no DQ match. I thought if Aries and Richard hadn't already stole the show, this would have stole the show. I just thought it was a brilliant way to send off two guys. They left everything out there. The other thing I actually quite liked about it was how everything was quite slow and methodical compared to sort of the Bram and Morgan match where everyone was sort of like, right, quick, we need to get another weapon, need to use the weapon. Whereas this was a bit more slow and methodical, and they took their time using everything, especially when the bit backstage actually just was a bit ridiculous when they get involved in all the electronic gear backstage, whatever. Seemed a bit too much try to add a bit of danger to the situation. But the whole point, the whole bit in the ring where James Storms totally broke down Magnus and gave himself so much time to set up his table, or when he to set up the railings on the chairs and stuff like that, like really sells it, like how vicious he is, and I just thought it was really well done. James Storm's a class act, and Magnus has improved a millionfold since he debuted in TNA. So I mean, I thought the match was great. A lot of people didn't like the finish. I thought it was fine. I'd rather that they'd done the sort of the Rocky and Apollo Creed thing and somebody gets the win than both of them just being left laying. But it was good. It was just a good send-off.
It was definitely a case of two guys to get out with a bang, even if that bang was something in production backstage that caused the screen to go everywhere. But no, great match. Good storytelling that these two guys absolutely hate each other. It just, as you say, nice, slow, methodical brawl. You know, it wasn't any rushed skits, any rushed spots or anything. It was just on perfect pace. Finish, I was not the biggest fan of, I'll admit that. Just as you mentioned, though, obviously, on the talkie finishes, what I would actually maybe like them to see them do, since both were going out, is have when the two glass bottles connect off each other's face, they both lie down, one arm goes over one guy, one arm goes over the other guy, and it's a double pin, it's a draw. It's maybe a bit of a dodgy finish, and TNA did do a lot of dodgy finishes. So
I hate that finish, not because of the finish itself. I just feel as if it's in that situation maybe a wee bit too cheaper than just one guy getting the pinfall, but mostly because it just makes me think of Jericho and China, and anything to make sure that feud is terrible.
No, I just think it'd be like a good send off for both workers. It's like both have done an amazing job.
Well, I think you've said there, that's what this match was. It was just a send off for the both of them. So the finish doesn't really matter, you know what I mean? But like obviously it's still a big part of the match. Anyway, may as well move on to... In fact, before we move on, Storm and Magnus both announced they were leaving the same day. And Magnus has already announced that he's signed with Global Force Wrestling for at least some of their live events. Nothing about their TV show yet. Nothing's come out about James Storm yet, I don't think. But on a show where Jeff Jarrett's in the main event as well, starting to seem like more than a coincidence what's going on with TNA these days. But we'll move on. Before the main event, we had EC3 and Tyrus against Bobby Lashley and Mr. Anderson. Just totally feels like these were other guys that they had there that they just had to use in a match.
I think it was a case of, we've got a couple of guys, we've got nothing for you. We don't have Kurt Angle. We need to make EC3 look really strong in his title match. Can you guys do the job? That's literally what it came across to me.
I mean, it'd have made more sense if... Well, obviously they had I think Ken Anderson was involved a couple of months ago or a month ago. He was certainly involved in not doing the UK tour and the whole EC3 against Rockstar Spud, Jeremy Borash type thing. He was involved in that. Obviously, EC3 faced Lashley as well. The whole thing where Kurt Angle picked his opponent, he picked Kurt Angle's. So it makes sense why they're against they two, but not in terms of recent storyline. The one thing I did notice, a lot of people talking about how Ken Anderson's mic didn't work at the start when he came out and did his entrance, but he didn't speak into it. So I don't know how people know it didn't work, but I think he was just trying to become across as a bit more of a badass and just... That's what I got for it anyway.
Maybe even just adding something different to make it look,
Well, you definitely had them go, screw it, or whatever, just go to the ring. The match was what it was. We see these matches every week on Raw. If I watched more Impact, you'd probably see one every week on Impact anyway. Just more of a throwaway match that is there just to make EC3 look strong. Although making clear that he still relies on Tyrus to get the job done sometimes.
I think it made him look really strong. I think it certainly made him look as if he was a proper monster, which we all think he should have been years and years ago, never mind just now. But it's good to see the likes of both him and EC3 really finding their feet in TNA. There were definitely two guys when they were in WWE that was massive untapped potential. The stuff I've seen in EC3 in WWE was just tremendous, and I felt, just needs that break. Turns out all he needed was a heel turn and a haircut and somebody to really get behind him, and he's potentially the biggest star and going to be their biggest star in the company one day. With Tyrus, it was just a case of less dancing, more just let me suplex people, but it made both of them look really strong coming out of it, and you're going over two guys that are last stages of career but still have a wee bit of name value.
Definitely. Always just interested to see Bobby Lashley anywhere. Just thinking that if things had went differently, he'd have been a multi-time WWE champion by this point. So I always think that's really interesting anytime you see him. Obviously, he'd different ideas about what he wanted to do with his career. And the same couldn't be said about Ken Anderson, I suppose. Misdiagnosed injury robbed him of the Money in the Bank. And you've got to assume he would have been WWE champion or at least World Heavyweight champion. Just interesting that both these guys find themselves in TNA at this stage of their career when they could have both been in not necessarily a much more valuable position, but a much more visible position in a bigger company. But again, all of this was done just to make EC3 look stronger and to build into his title match with Kurt Angle on Wednesday. So we move on to the main event, the return after 6 years of the King of the Mountain match, which now has its very own title, which
is an old title, which has been changed so many times. I think they went Legends Championship to Global Championship and probably something else, I can't even remember.
TV title,
yep. But they took something like they changed the colour of the straps. It's just... like with the King of the Mountain match, you do need something to hang up, I suppose. But even if it was, I hate to steal this idea, but even if it was a briefcase with a contract in it for not even like a title shot at any time in a year, just you get a title shot next week or something after EC3. But given its own title, I really hope it's not a one-time thing. You know, if they're going to do this, bring the title back every year. And
well, I'll tell you what it reminded me of as well, because I actually really like when titles have different names other than the weight division in the championship. I mean, it's wrestling, folk aren't in weight classes, so if you can move away from that, I enjoy it. That's how we've got SWA here, who's, although it's currently vacant, one of their lower titles is the Laird of the Ring. I think that's brilliant. Like, it means you've got a name. You're the Laird of the Ring. You're the King of the Mountain, as opposed to you're the such and such champion. I think it's easier to brand as well. It looks better as opposed to the such and such trademarked champion. Like, but I mean, they've not really got enough talent to have another title. That's the only thing. And I mean, so like, what's this? Is this, like you're saying, is this a once a year thing? Is this, because I mean, the King of the Mountain matches, and I'll be honest, I've only seen 2 or 3 of them, but I really like it. It's one of the more logical concept matches there is in wrestling. And for people to say it doesn't make sense, I'm wondering what level of intelligence they possess, to be quite honest. But I like the idea of it having its own championship and it being sort of kind of like their King of the Ring, almost. But the match itself, Jeff Jarrett wins the title, and who knows what happens from here.
I just think they made it too obvious it was going to be Jeff Jarrett. That's the problem, you know. I just kind of felt it was the Jeff Jarrett show plus 4 sidemen.
Do you feel it was very John Cena-esque?
Yep, very Cena-esque. It's like, I want to think it would they give to somebody different, but it just seemed so obvious, you know. I thought everybody that was in the match gave as good as they got. Some really good spots. Drew's Swanton dive type thing was phenomenal. Wasn't too keen in the pile driver. I felt it was maybe a bit too risky, despite it being obviously Eric Young's kind of gimmick to do pile drivers and that. But
it looked absolutely brutal.
But apart from that, I thought everybody done a great job. I feel unfortunately a lot of guys were just kind of thrown in. You know, there wasn't really any backstory for Drew being in there. It's like, would it made more sense if the Rising came in to help him, or if BDC came down and then the Rising,
or if there was a member of the BDC in the match.
Mm-hmm. Something like that. It's like, Bobby Roode's in there. Why? You know, if Bobby Roode's in there, why is Eddie Edwards not in there? You know, that kind of thing. But nah, it was okay. Will never obviously be as good as other matches, because obviously they were all for the actual main TNA title and they had lots of backstory going into it. But no, it was okay. I like the concept. It's different. You need to have different concepts in wrestling. You can't just go with the same old method. The idea of people in the penalty box just means it gives instead of folk having a punch and being knocked down for how long. You know, it's like, oh, this punch has taken them out for 2 minutes, but a DDT is a 2-second kick out, you know. So getting them away for 2 minutes and just giving another chance for wrestlers to get their spots in and get themselves over. And then, of course, you get rest time as well, which I just think is a great concept.
That's the biggest thing for me in matches, less ladder matches, and that, like, how a bump leaves you on the deck for a ridiculous amount of time. And this, it makes sense, and I really liked, like, although it became very clear at the start of the match that Jeff was going to win it, when he takes the first fall and looks shocked, and then as soon as he's let out of the penalty box, he's attacked by Eric Young and takes the second pinfall, so he's back in there. And I really liked that, and it built up like how he such a mountain to overcome at that point. I did find that the thing I thought most interesting about the whole show leading up to it was everyone that did a promo, as soon as they went to talk about their opponents, they mentioned Drew Galloway first. So I thought, nah, he's not winning it. Why they mention him first though? Also, he didn't take a pinfall in the match and he looked really strong. Neither did Matt Hardy. He didn't take a pinfall either. I just thought that quite peculiar.
Were they not in the penalty box at the same time at one point? I think they did take one pinfall each and were in at the same time, and then they came straight out.
They were in the penalty box, but they didn't take a pinfall.
All right, I know just.
All right, no, well, sorry, they did take pinfalls, but like not one that qualified somebody to
Alright, okay.
like not a notable pinfall. Like, so I think they took a pinfall, like, so the match lasted, I think it went over 20 minutes. So they took their pinfalls like the 17th minute or something like that, the 16th minute. So it was late on, whereas everybody else who took a pinfall within like the first 5 minutes. But no, that was our thing as well. Like, people are taking pinfalls as opposed to you can go 20 minutes without being pinned. I mean, it's whereas every other week you're being pinned after 7 minutes, or 5 minutes even. It seems a bit unrealistic at times, but that's the thing that I took away from the match most, is it was really logically booked. Apart from Jeff Jarrett winning the title, I suppose. But obviously there's more in that going forward. Also interesting that it was Drew Galloway's first ever pay-per-view main event. Obviously not including pay-per-views, but he's done a lot of them in the indies recently. That seemed like it was a big deal to him as well. And I thought he came off really well in the match. More so than anybody out with Jeff Jarrett. So, where does this leave us? That's the biggest question, really.
I'll let you know Bound for Glory, and I'll probably watch it next.
If that even takes place.
If that is it. I think it's going to be a case of just really looking out for kind of, no even spoilers or anything, but kind of just looking out for stuff from TNA's website, from Global Force's website, from... It's hard to speculate in storylines when you don't know what the future is for the company, I think it's probably best looking at like Jeff Jarrett's Twitter feed or stuff like that to know where TNA and where Global Force is going to go, because the next time we end up mentioning TNA or Global Force Wrestling, the invasion could happen. I think the tapings are only maybe 4 weeks away, 3-4 weeks away. And with the talent that they've got available in Global Force Wrestling, Young Bucks, Bullet Club, Chris Masters, Justin Gabriel, these kind of guys, if they all get involved, then it could make it really, really interesting.
Well, that's the biggest interest to me, is because so many of these guys for Global Force have only signed live event deals, or have only agreed to participate in live events, and there's only a handful that have signed for their television shows. So obviously you've got to imagine that would be, or the television pilot even, so you've got to imagine that would be involved, those would be the people involved in any sort of angle with TNA. Also brings up the idea of, does Jeff Jarrett just buy out TNA? And there's a lot of different ways it could go. I think the whole invasion thing seems most likely to happen, and I think it would. I'm not saying it would be great, but it would be interesting to see how it panned out. There's not really been anything like that in wrestling. Well, apart from it currently happening in Japan, but there's not been something like that in wrestling for a long time now, and maybe the time is right for something like that to come back round.
I just feel it maybe be better if it wasn't just like a completely new company, if it was two maybe established companies, because like if Global Force comes in, you don't exactly recognise the wrestler that will be with Global Force, you don't associate him with that brand. I mean, let's be honest, 70% of the brand is pretty much ex-TNA guys, so folk could just say, oh no, is that guy representing TNA? Oh no, he's in the bad guys team, just that kind of thing. But no, so it'll be interesting. It's so hard to predict, and it's just one you're going to really just need to keep your eyes peeled for.
Definitely. And the other TNA relevant news this week was that Pro Wrestling Illustrated, who obviously produced the yearly awards and the PWI 500 and things like that. Obviously, they report in kayfabe, which is some people don't understand, and that's why somebody like John Cena has been Wrestler of the Year a couple of times, and The Miz has been Wrestler of the Year and stuff like that. But they announced that from I don't know if they said it was like from now or whatever, that they'll no longer consider TNA's World Heavyweight title to be a World Heavyweight title. I've not actually read any more into why that would be. Just think it's an interesting move. Obviously, it's a really well respected publication in the wrestling world. Sort of on the kayfabe side of things, it's like it's the biggest thing there is, out with the companies themselves. Just maybe another blow to TNA and their decline, it seems like.
It's just a sad state of affairs, you know, it really is. Well, there's not much you can add to it apart from it's a sad state of affairs, and it kind of shows the direction it seems that, well, really a lot of stuff that TNA is getting, you know, it's all bad press. I've never really seen any positive press going out. Like, let's be honest, you look at that pay-per-view, you say it was a good pay-per-view, most of the press is going, oh, look at the production, look what happened with that. It's just a shame, and you just hope, you know, that the company can get on the right foot and hopefully get the title seen again as a world championship and seen as a more serious company.
I just feel as it's always been elitism for wrestling fans, and the majority have never given TNA the time of day. I think that's the biggest issue. I mean, all right, you're a wrestling fan. In fact, actually, suppose it, you're wrestling. What do you actually know about television production? Exactly, like, and you're like, oh no, man, that the production. Like, what? You don't know anything, like, and it's always a case like where I always feel like you're on a knife edge. Like when we talk about wrestling, like we're no wrestlers, we've not trained to be wrestlers, we've just watched it for quite a long while, and we're no idiots. So I mean, and I feel as if that's always like a lot of wrestling fans always get tarnished by that brush, like, oh, just idiots, and especially in America, it's, oh, you're just daft rednecks watching your fake program that's on a Monday night or whatever. But that's how a lot of people come across. And I mean, but then it's hilarious when you see like Dixie Carter, the top honcho at TNA, getting involved with a fan on Twitter, like, because they've slated your show. I mean, people are allowed their opinions, and a lot of those opinions are stupid, and the people giving them are just as stupid. So you need to ignore that stuff and concentrate on the positives. TNA have obviously got a big fan base. Their viewership in Destination America has increased the last 3 weeks. And I mean, so that's what you should be focusing on, and not slating people that don't like your pay-per-view.
Some wee troll that just wants to get a response out of you.
Exactly, and that's what it is most of the time. I mean, if anybody actually had any criticism, they would be doing it on a podcast list. They'd write maybe a blog about it. They would be putting it in a review on their website that they make money from. But no, if you're going to listen to the minority of people, I imagine it is, on Twitter, firing jabs at you, then that's an issue for yourself to deal with. That was quite funny though, the Twitter response with guys like Eric Young and that, using many expletives after the show. Again, it's that case of, like, when it gets to the stage when even the talent is focusing on the negatives, being negative fans, that's not a good sign for your company. That sort of hints to something behind the scenes that isn't quite right as well. But again, you just hope that they try and build on their strong television numbers, as opposed to letting idiot wrestling fans get them down.
That's the thing, like, I'm not the biggest fan of TNA what it is right now, but that's because when I watched it up until 2011, the stuff I'd watched was really enjoyable. It's just I feel it's nowhere near the level it was, and basically as soon as they signed Hogan and Bischoff, that was me. I'm like, no thanks, but no, I'll stop watching. But I'm not one of these people that will go on and give Eric Young, etc., abuse and all this. I'll look at Eric Young and go, you were entertaining when I watched you. I'll tune in and I'll every so often, and I'll be a fan. It'll be interesting to see what you do, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna send you abuse or anything. Like even WWE wrestlers, I don't particularly like. The only ones that no, on a serious note, but the ones I'll send abuse for are the ones that deserve it. Okay, people butchering the stunners, but more than often I'll give a wrestler positive feedback. Like anytime Cesaro's in the ring, I'll just say you were absolutely spectacular. You don't connect, mate. You just deliver, stuff like that. But I try and be positive to the wrestlers.
And I mean, you're talking to a guy that Tyson Kidd has told gets it. So I mean, that's the thing. I don't get the point. And like, if you're going to use social media to be negative, then you're a person that doesn't deserve. Like, if somebody's negative towards me, there's no point in replying to them. Like, there really isn't.
That's another thing. You mentioned this earlier on, Jericho's podcast with Big Show. Now, I've said with Jericho on the WWE, said, I'm not going to watch it, I don't think it'll be that good. But I'll listen to his actual podcast, like just Talk Is Jericho, because I feel it's no, when it's on WWE, like you're expecting something massive. When it's Talking Jericho, you're just expecting stories. And when I heard it was a Big Show, right, I'm not a Big Show fan of any imagination, right, but I thought, Big Show, he's been there, he's seen everything. It says if you're going to listen to the Big Show, you'll learn something. And like, for what everything the Big Show said was just, perfect. And I complimented Jericho. I said, great with the Big Show. I says, absolutely fantastic mind for the business. The guy knows he's in his last legs and he's doing all he can to help the company going forward. I got a wee retweet of that, which was quite awesome. But no, the case, it was like just, again, a guy that a lot of people go, just retire, you're shite, you're old. And then when you hear Big Show's side of it, it's like, well, that makes sense. Like, he knows he's in his last legs, but he's doing his best to make these younger guys look really, really good.
Yeah, exactly. But that's that. Definitely always annoys me when social media becomes just a slag fest. Although sometimes I thrive in these situations. Anyway, we'll move on from TNA to our weekly Raw review. At least this week, we don't need to talk for half an hour about Seth Rollins, so that's a bonus.
Got some bad news for you, but I don't have any Apple Watches or a Cadillac for you.
Damn it. So Raw opened with Seth Rollins' Authority promo, and I actually really enjoyed it. It didn't feel like a 20-minute slog like it usually does. It was ridiculous and it was over the top, and they're really trying hard to sell this angle of a united authority. And I thought it was decent. And the thing that I loved is they set up the thing that they've done so many times where they bring out a car and you're like, right, it's going to get trashed at some point, and you're waiting for it and you're waiting for it. And they're so into building up Rollins and the authority at this point that we didn't get that. We didn't get the car getting trashed or anything like that. We didn't get Dean Ambrose attacking the Hawaiian band that was there for Kane or anything like that. No, we just got the segment finishing. And even at the end of the show, we still didn't get that. But I was cool with that. They're trying so hard to build up Rollins and the United Authorities being a force to be reckoned with.
It was strange. I honestly, I'd put in Twitter, I have no idea what the fuck I'm watching, but no, it makes sense, like, you don't want them coming out every week and saying, dead serious, monotone, voice every week saying, I'm going to beat Brock Lesnar and stuff like that. It again tells the story, like, Seth's got Lesnar coming up, but he needs every guy in the authority to be in his side, and when he's even revealing stuff like the prices and stuff, it's like, this is how much he's willing to pay to make sure he's got everybody on his side so he can defeat Brock Lesnar.
Aye, that was it. It was really the biggest thing about the segment was also putting over that he needs them to fight Lesnar. And they also set up the main event, which was to be Rollins and Kane against Reigns and Ambrose for the umpteenth time. But I mean, I thought it was an effective opening segment as well. And by the time it was done, I didn't realise 20 minutes had passed. And that was the same for a lot of the show, to be quite honest, last night. The segment ended with Big Show coming out, which I thought was good story continuity. And obviously, commentary tied into how they've said he's an extended member of the Authority or whatever, family member of the Authority. Didn't they understand having Big Show against Mark Henry as your first match of the show, though?
Not exactly a way to get the crowd into the show, work the crowd and make everybody buzzing for the show. But 5 years ago, this would have been, I'd been alright with it. I thought this could have main evented SmackDown.
Exactly what I was thinking. Like 5 years ago, these two, obviously with Daniel Bryan and the Shadows, had a brilliant feud. They really did. Both guys worked through injuries through it as well, and it was really captivating feud. Obviously, that led into Daniel Bryan's first World Heavyweight Championship run. But 5 years down the line, I can be doing without the Big Show squashing Mark Henry inside 3 minutes on Raw.
And the fact that Mark Henry's probably been back for 3 weeks and had 3 turns. I don't know if he's been heel, face, heel, or I don't even know what alignment it is at the moment. Was he really portraying a babyface, or was he just really pissed off and because of Big Show's comments the other week where he didn't manage to squash Ryback?
I don't know, but obviously that's what it was. It was obviously that was why they were facing each other this week. So it made, again, continued the whole theme. It made sense that they faced off. But I mean, Mark Henry just, even when like they were in Texas and he didn't even get a pop for the crowd. I mean, that's bad. I still think like Mark Henry's probably. I think if you make a list, he's probably the most underrated talker in wrestling history. But he's not a great in-ring talent, let's be quite honest. And if you're going to be jobbing to folk, I'd rather it wasn't the Big Show for the umpteenth time.
So I think with Mark Henry, it's kind of a case of if you want something with him, it has to be a programme where he's got some heat behind him rather than just kind of meaningless matches where crowds like, we've got no reason to give you a reaction. Unlike previous years, it's been my Hall of Pain, I'm going to retire angle and stuff like that. The crowd really bought it and it was a great promo segment, but having no build to it, and the crowd obviously, because he'd been out for so long, was just flat.
So, there's Mark Henry. Let's wait. Oh, he said that's what he does. Oh, what does he do now? Get squashed. Just a shame. But also, this was there to set up. Obviously, you had Miz on commentary for this as well. I thought Miz was brilliant on commentary. He
just plays that annoying guy perfectly.
Just so well. Spent the entire time pretty much ignoring his. Although the commentators kept bringing him back to this triple threat with Big Show and Ryback, and he's just dismissing everyone having to talk about the tough talk that he's got on the network and all that. He's also promoting the company as well. So he's absolutely brilliant at flinging everything in when he needs to, and when he's also just rhyming off a bunch of shit about how he's a movie star, and I just think he's brilliant. He's the perfect guy. He's the guy that WWE dream of. Just a shame that he's not. I know that he's not a better wrestler, but that he wasn't a better wrestler sooner. But again, still a brilliant talent for them to use. And the best thing about this is obviously this three-way feud is it's three distinctly different characters, which is different feuds. That's usually there's two people that are quite samey in a feud like this, but you've got two big guys, but one of them's a baby face and he's a champion determined to keep his title. Another one's a conniving veteran who's in the latter days of his career. And then you've got the small guy who is a total heel that nobody cares about.
It's a complete smack talker.
Exactly. So it works. So Big Show wins the match, no bother. Then Ryback comes down, and that's the only thing I didn't like. The babyface shouldn't be instigating a post-match attack, but he did it anyway, and he takes Big Show out with a shoulder block to the knee, and then Miz comes in and has a wee cheap shot at the Big Show, which I thought was brilliant. Runs away. That also set up the next match, which was Ryback against Miz. Seen this. I don't know if we've seen this exact match before, but we've seen matches like this before. Just Ryback being dominating, and Miz just trying to chink shit his way out of everything. Eventually runs away and takes the count out loss. Biggest thing about these couple of segments, it's working and getting Ryback over. Definitely, crowd's really behind him. Folk will argue and say it's just a chant, but I think he's well on his way to being one of the top baby faces.
And I think if you're going to get to become one of the top baby faces, you need a guy that people hate to, be the opposite side of that. And I think the Miz is the perfect guy to get Ryback and get the crowd connecting with him. Because let's be honest, they've done it with Sandow. He's done it with so many other guys during his tenure. And I just feel you'll have the annoying side of obviously a guy like a Miz, so you'll get him reactions there. But he'll also be more believable. The fact he's obviously is a giant as well. And the fact he's got two guys up against him, he's basically up against all odds. And I think it's a no-lose situation for Ryback in this situation. Sorry.
Definitely. I think definitely see him coming out with the title at the end of this feud, and he'll be all the better for it. Especially working with the experience, the big show, and obviously the into his Yang and the Miz. This was followed up with the Divas, and it was a brilliant rematch.
Feeling alright?
The first time in so long that they've had a good match on television, and a big part of that I think was the fact that we had Alicia Fox in the match as well, who in my opinion does the best Northern Light suplex in wrestling these days. But no, they had a brilliant rematch. Some nice near falls, some good exchanges between them as well, and I thought the Bellas did some good work on the outside as well. I still don't like that Alicia Fox is sided with the Bellas, but it makes sense for the storyline. But mostly was just shocked that the Divas had an almost 10-minute match on Raw.
I just feel Alicia Fox is one of those talents that's just been criminally underused. I think she's obviously not going to be amazing in the ring, but she's, compared to what else you've got, she is pretty decent. You know, she puts on good matches. One thing I couldn't get over is, I think it was the day Joey Styles tweeted happy 29th birthday, and I'm thinking she's been on the main roster for at least 6-7 years. So I mean, if you get somebody that young, why not put all your eggs in her basket, and she could have been a sense.
No. That wasn't innuendo, was it?
No, but just put all your stock in her, and she could be like a glorified. This isn't going very well, is it? But you know what I mean. Just to invest in her. Yeah, but no, but I feel.
I would put Oya in Alicia Fox. Let's be clear.
No, but you know what I mean. She's definitely somebody that they certainly probably dropped the ball with. This isn't going well at all. But no, she should have been someone to base the company around the Divas division with Asia. I mean, the fact that she's 29 and you feel you only know for a small title reign and then a couple other kind of things where she's done heel antics for no apparent reason, I just feel just gave her a better chance, and she could have been. I think maybe even the problem with her could have been the fact that AJ Lee was so dominant, and that was their prime focus, that they never had a chance to focus on her.
Exactly, especially that's like a couple of years there. AJ Lee pretty much dominated the landscape of the Divas. The other thing as well is like, so when did Alicia Fox have her title reign? It was like 2010.
It's as long as that.
2009.
Because I was looking at it, showed you a video, and it was the likes of Eve was still in the ring, Maurice. So you're thinking it is a good wee while ago.
Just a shame that they never really done anything after that.
I just think if you're going to have a diva like that at such an age and she's going to be around for a long time, what they're doing with Paige, get behind them, you know, give them that opportunity, and they could end up. I think Paige will make them a good bit of money. Like, they've already got her in Tough Enough and all that. Pretty much, you see Mace Wayne's are like, oh, they want to be Paige. You know, there's no reason why they couldn't have catered for a demographic and said, oh, this is Alicia Fox, it's something different. You never really had. In the WWE especially, I would even say Jacqueline or Jazz was a dominant, you know, black or African American.
You can say black, you're alright, she is black.
But Dia, you know?
Well, that's the thing, it's like, and it's taking them like so long because there's so very few like positive black characters has been on their show. And then a couple of that way, there's been so little positive female characters on their show. Like, you thought they could have maybe went and actually gave her a push and put her in a position where she could have been that positive role model. When there's like she's one of a handful of black female wrestlers that have been in WWE. Know what I mean? And she's had such a long tenure. She's probably had the longest run as a black female wrestler on the roster. Know what I mean? So for them to have not really used her for years until last year when they had that wee crazy stint for a couple of weeks, and that went away quickly. I mean, it's just a shame. And she's very, very competent in ring, as she's shown on Raw on Monday night. But anyway, the match itself, back and forth until Alicia goes for a roll up and Paige rolls through and takes the sneaky win, which is great. It meant that the Bellas couldn't interfere and gives Paige a win heading into which I'm assuming will be a title match against Nikki Bella at Battleground.
The only thing I didn't like about it was, as I mentioned to you, the flailing arms at the end. It's like, that's so easy to just put your shoulder up, you know. But apart from that, everything else was alright.
Aye. fine.
It's a small thing, and I suppose when you're on TV that often, it's stuff you can get away with on a house show, I think, but on TV, maybe not so much.
Well, that's the thing. It is a house show thing, like, because at a house show, so you're catering to the person in the very last row. So if you get rolled up and you don't if you don't flail about, the person in the back row just looks like, oh, that was an easy pin. Whereas if you're flailing about to the person that's 120 feet away at the back of the arena, it'll look like, oh, that was close. It's your score there. But sometimes you need to pull it back on television a wee bit, otherwise it looks a bit too ridiculous. Anyway, talking about ridiculous, that's the best way to describe the match that followed that. We had John Cena come out for his weekly US Open challenge, which was answered by Kevin Owens, who swiftly changed his mind. And he brought out Cesaro to face Cena. And they had a 20 plus minute match on Raw, which is rare in itself. I don't think it was as good as their match at the start of the year on Raw, but it was certainly up there. Especially with Cena flinging in a couple of more moves. As much as I'm not a big fan of them, it added to the match. As did Cesaro flinging in the sharpshooter as well. But nah, absolutely brilliant match. I thought it was just right. It was very much in the same vein as the match that Cena and Owens had on pay-per-view, but they had a couple less near falls, which made it seem just as if it was a bit better paced to me. And obviously, if the match wasn't as good, the highlight would have been Kevin Owens on commentary. But that was just a nice wee bit of icing on the cake here.
A small thing I didn't like is just obviously talk about storylines linking with each other. You had literally like a week ago Cesaro versus Owens, and then magically Owens goes, but you're going to face this guy. So why would these two interact when they've already, with the small interaction they did have, they hated each other and then Owens beat him? But aside from that, we'll forget that. I'm wondering if the decision to put Owens in commentary was because NXT had him, Byron, Rich and Corey Graves in commentary, and that was fantastic. They handled a 4-man announce team perfectly. We had the heel siding with Kevin Owens spectacular and Corey Graves. Rich was telling the story and all that. And then you had Byron, obviously, just like Kevin Owens putting his arm around him and just winding him up and stuff like that. But it was interesting, they added a bit with, obviously, on Raw as well, where it's like, I'm happy to sit next to JBL. Oh, hi, Byron. Okay, just leading into that, but no, I thought it was well done. Obviously, Kevin Owens didn't get as much freedom to speak on the commentary as he did on NXT, but it was just fantastic. You know, he was giving his character up amazingly, just saying, I would have kicked out of this, but this guy's a top class athlete, but I would have been fine, I'd probably still beat him, just stuff like that. Match, fantastic. Every time Cena's in, Cena seems to bring it, you know. You put in a phenomenal worker like Cesaro. Apparently doesn't connect. I really don't get this.
Aye.
I mean, the crowd were, I think there was a wee bit of pop when he came out, and they were really behind him in the match. You know, popping for all his kind of his signature spots and popping for the few that he brought in as Tyson Kidd's kind of spots, which I thought was an absolutely phenomenal gesture. You know, even stuff like the sharpshooter and all that was just, it just shows that they not just in the ring but outside the ring had a real good friendship together.
Definitely. It's just that way. Like, I think it's pardon me, it's a stage where Cesaro's arguably the best in-ring worker in the world right now. It's just absolutely flawless. Everything he does is just so good. I mean, when I got to the stage where he hit that, Cena bumps to the outside and he hit that running uppercut, it was absolutely ridiculous. Just looked so authentic. Something that's missing for a lot of people on the main roster. Everyone just looks so authentic when he does it. Just a shame that it seemed a bit too samey. It's at times, like, because we'd seen it before, but the fact that it was like five months ago since we've seen the match, if even that, it still felt quite fresh, despite some of the spots within the match. But it's just great to see Cesaro getting that spotlight as well, getting a chance to shine. Obviously, a shame what's happened to Tyson Kidd. Looks like he'll be out for at least a year before returning, if he does return. And I just thought adding those couple of things in made Cesaro look better all around, because he's never really had any submission stuff in his in-ring repertoire in WWE, so that was a nice addition, flinging the sharpshooter stuff in, having the wee wristband and stuff as well.
It was just like everyone he's, as you say, we like make it look authentic. Everyone his uppercuts look honest as if it was going to take Cena's head off, especially when he puts him up in the air and nails him. The only two things that maybe a bit negative is I still don't like the flip powerbomb type thing that Cena's doing. I say it's somebody at his age. I don't really think it's really necessary. I still not happy with the stunner. I don't think that it again looked very, very rusty, and I think Cesaro kind of saved it, but apart from that, good match. Told the story perfectly. Cesaro did look like he could win, and Kevin Owens is like, oh, somebody's going to beat this guy. It's going to be me, which is why he obviously attacked Cesaro first, which, good storylines, but hopefully it makes Vince McMahon, it makes Triple H, it makes whoever's in charge of the 30-odd writers take notice. Not just the marks or the smarks, or what I call them, like Cesaro. I think the whole crowd likes Cesaro. Give him an opportunity. Comes to worst, give him a manager, or just don't make him speak, just make him kick ass.
No, exactly. It's just it seems like, right, we like him, we like his in-ring talent, but we don't think he's connecting, so we'll put him with Paul Heyman. It's like, you didn't need to put him with Paul Heyman. And then when it didn't work with Paul Heyman, they've obviously went and blamed that on Cesaro, so that's why it was sort of a move down the card a bit after that. Just a shame. Obviously the thing with Tyson Kidd's happened, because you'd imagine they'd have probably been back in contention towards SummerSlam. Just definitely think there needs to some changes happening, and he needs to have some direction going forward. He's still got the talent to be wasted sitting on the sidelines. Although that could be said for a lot of people. I just think he's probably top of that list. Cena here was great, kept up with Cesaro on that. Again, I agree. The sunset flip powerbomb looked better here. It just seems unnecessary. Doesn't befit a guy like Cena.
It's something where you could. I wouldn't even say you need it in every pay-per-view. You need it from, if you're going to use it every pay-per-view, every like big pay-per-view. But every Raw's just, it's not necessary. It's not needed.
It's very much the same with the stunner. See if they called it something. See if they just said, "Oh, jawbreaker." Like, see if they just called it a jawbreaker. That'd have been fine. It's the fact they call it a stunner as well, and it means eventually somebody's going to use an actual stunner, and it's going to be, oh, to younger fans, oh, that's the thing that John Cena does. Whereas to us, it's all Stone Cold's thing. And I just feel like he's butchering it more times than he's hitting it successfully as well now. So it's just, they need to get rid of it. I mean, there's other moves you can do. No, I mean, it's not like you need to fling in ridiculous looking stuff to your repertoire in ring. I mean, fair enough, he's got like the second rope leg drop or the top rope leg drop that he throws in occasionally as well. So if the moves were as infrequent as that is, that'd be fine. Just every week is no good. He's got his 5 moves, he do them for a reason.
One thing I did like is when he had Cesaro up, it was as if he was going to go for a... Was it? It might have been last night. It might have been with faced Owens, but he went for the FU, or the actual adjustment. Sorry, looking back years ago, and instead of like nailing it the way he does, he nailed it in front of him, which is just something completely that's a wee bit different. It's kind of like, oh, it's a new move, just something like I'd like to see maybe more often.
He did that against Cesaro last night. I think that's when he got a 2 count on that, because I thought he'd hit the actual adjustment, but he never hit it during the match. I literally just looked away for a second when he had him on his shoulders. It turns out that's what he'd hit. But that's a bonus. At least he didn't hit the attitude adjustment for somebody to kick out it again. Obviously, segment ends with Owens laying both of the guys out with his pop-up powerbomb. Cuts a wee promo about how he's going to be the guy to take the title off of Cena. Really effective build up towards the pay-per-view.
I'll be honest, there was a small hope. I was thinking, maybe Finn comes out and scares him away, but then I'm thinking to myself, when he debuts, it's got to be massive. You know, it's really, there's no point in like if he comes out in paint or whatever, and everybody's like, oh my god, where's this guy next week, and we don't see him for ages. I felt maybe they could have built up the match in Japan a little bit with having, I don't know, Kevin Owens say this what happened to Cena, this was happened to Cesaro, Balor, this was going to happen to you on Saturday, or or stuff like that. But I mean, they did promote it on commentary, so I suppose be interesting to see how that goes down.
I did find it strange that they actually mentioned Finn Balor by name on commentary. I just feel like they're trying too hard to keep the main roster and NXT separate. I mean, you can't have your champion on the show and then like talk about how much the title means and then basically disregard for weeks that he's defending his title on a big event for WWE. So that's a one niggling thing. But I mean, it would mean that they'd have put these vignettes for Finn Balor on Raw, and then that would have everybody obviously awaiting his debut in the main roster, because you can't stick something like that on Raw and then no have them appear on the show. Unless you're Hayde Vanson, but I mean, it's a special circumstance.
Remember him?
He did an interview recently, and he just sounds like an utter wank.
Was there not a case he done 2 vignettes where he was going to like...
No, even 2, just the one.
Just the one where he was going to challenge Undertaker? And is he not like a really wee guy as well?
He's not that he's really wee, but he's like 6 footish. Like,
so it's still wee compared to Taker then, eh? Just, I don't know what they were thinking then.
But that was the whole point, was like he was like the mastermind, and then it was like an X-Men type thing. So you'd bring in like other folk to wear down Taker before. The storyline sounded good, obviously. Then Vincent McMahon or whoever put the kibosh on it, and it was done with. Guy sounds like a prick though. The only other thing that I remember about that time was when Dean Ambrose was first getting his tryouts with WWE back then. But anyway, that's irrelevant. Shows how long ago that was though. Moving on Raw, we had a nice wee multi-man tag match here. Lucha Dragons, who still get a crowd reaction. At this stage, it's because they've got something easy to chant, which is fine. But their in-ring stuff gets a good reaction when they do it, because it's always impressive. They teamed with the Primetime Players against Bo Dallas and the New Day. Before we get into the match, might as well just discuss Bo Dallas having another interaction with a WWE, a wrestling legend, being interrupted by The Rock at a house show last week in Boston. Follows on for him interrupting Sting the Raw after WrestleMania a couple of months ago. Seems to be constantly involved in big segments, but nothing ever comes of it. It's always a wee bit depressing that his talents aren't used so well.
It's one of the guys that just time's obviously again on his side as well, but just somebody that age getting to interact with all these legends in such a massive stage is just unbelievable. I mean, it must, even though he's been treated as a jobber, it's still like, wow, I'm getting to do something with Sting, I'm getting to do something with The Rock. It's just unbelievable.
I know but then again, he's really young, so there's always places you can go for there. And it means down the line, if they ever do anyone, they will always have these clips of him interacting with these legends. But anyway, the match itself was strange. The babyfaces seemed to dominate it. Then there was a short period of time where the New Day were in control. Ultimately, though, the Primetime Players, Titus O'Neil gets the win, catching Kofi for the top rope and hitting his finish, which I thought was really cool. It was, if you can hit your finish different ways, that's always nice versatility to have as part of your moveset. I just thought it was just, you could tell the match was just there to try and sort of bring more people into the tag scene as they head towards SummerSlam.
Even a case of just kind of giving some people TV time. I think they're at a stage now where there's some folk they just don't want to kind of keep off television, you know, they like try to get the Lucha Dragons in as much as possible, because obviously they were never really in the tag scene, the proper title hunt. So I think it's just like keeping fans in touch, you know, these guys are still about, and they're going to be a huge part of our plans in the future.
Well, actually, really, I think it's smart of them to go, right, we're 2 weeks out from the pay-per-view, so we're going to need somebody to go after the pay-per-view, so bring in another tag team into the scene without causing too much hassle. And I'll be honest, I've been totally fine with, I think the Lucha Dragons have maybe only picked up two pinfall losses on television. Like, I know they've been in multi-man matches where they've lost, but they've not been on the end of the pin. So the crowd aren't disenchanted with them yet, so there's plenty of time for them to be positioned well going forward, possibly even in a feud for the tag team championship. I did like the spot fest to close out the multi-man match, which is a staple of WWE. Just thought it was quite funny watching Titus try to whip the Lucha Dragons off the ropes. It looked quite awkward, but it was fine. Nearly as awkward as seeing the four of them doing the millions of dollars dance at the end of the match.
It was pretty bizarre.
The only other thing there is, I thought it was, I can understand why they never done it, but on all their social media they made a point of highlighting that Dan Young had been at the Gay Pride March in New York, especially after obviously the big decision in the Senate over there legalising gay marriage. Just peculiar that they never mentioned it even on commentary or anything like that. Just felt like it could be a great bit of publicity, considering that they've had negative publicity regarding gay storylines and stuff in the past.
Have they ever announced on actual television anything to do with his sexual orientation? No.
Nah. Then again, but I'm cool that they've not. But there's no reason why you can't just say that he was there, giving his support for the cause, without actually saying that he's gay. Obviously, they try and keep that stuff to a minimal, because if you put that in television, then that's becomes part of storyline as well, obviously. But I just thought they could have at least mentioned it. It would have been a nice wee positive for the company as well.
Even if it's a case if Titus was there as well, just say the primetime players are off on support and stuff like that.
They could even just say the primetime players, but then only have a picture of Dan Young. You know what I mean? It's easy enough to do. Anyway, we had, after this, Lana and Ziggler, and I don't know why they made it like, oh, they're going public, and I mean, they've only been snogging the faces off each other on television for weeks. I don't know what about that wasn't public. But we did have a decent wee promo segment. I think it took a bit too long to get into the bones of it. Ziggler playing the shy guy, didn't suit him at all at the start of the promo. And I was delighted when Rusev came out. Even more so when he brought Summer Rae with him. I think that's a nice wee pair, and if they stick with that going forward. And then it all sort of boiled up to a point where you thought they were going to fight, and it never happened. I was cool with that. It was good to hear Rusev on the mic as well. And then was surprised and happy to see Summer Rae get some mic time as well. Just wished that she'd called Lana a bitch. That'd have sealed it. I mean, if John Cena can call somebody a bitch, it seems to be it's alright to call a guy a bitch, but you can't call a woman a bitch. But I mean, I was impressed with what Summer Rae had to say as well, and she delivered her lines well. And then we finished the segment with a cat fight.
Let's just hope they never ever have to wrestle each other. But no, they done. I thought the segment was perfect, for what it was. It highlighted obviously the Ziggler-Lana relationships, Rusev's jealousy. One thing that disappointed me Rusev is, apart from that, he literally can't do anything. His ankle or whatever still seems like it's a good wee while away. I thought he'll be fine.
Or they just try to pull the wool here? I'm
hoping they are. I'm hoping like Q&A where he just comes out with his big kick onto Ziggler's face. But no, it was okay for what it was. I thought Summer Rae was very good in the mic. Be interesting to see, because she's never really been given a long-term programme to really showcase her mic skills, which for the stuff I've seen in the FCW, it was alright, it's pretty
decent. This is someone who was the pardon me, someone who was the general manager of FCW like 4 years ago. So I mean, if you're getting put in that position in developmental, like, they obviously see something in you. And let's not forget, like, when she was in NXT, she had some decent matches. It's not like she was absolutely terrible or anything like Just remains to be seen if Lana does, can, or will wrestle. If she does, I just hope she's been training. But again, as soon as she got involved physically, crowd went wild. Crowd loved it. And it's just a shame that it took so long for that to actually happen with Lana.
Because that's the thing, you wonder like how much she's been training or whatnot, but then you think she's on the road to the main roster, she's obviously still going to be managing Ziggler on live events, so where is she fitting in any sort of training? That's the worry. You know, that could have been time spent at the Performance Centre or just NXT house shows, so it'll be interesting. But I say it's the case of what we mentioned the last few weeks. You know, it's another character that's getting over in the women's division. A woman that's getting over, without being in the women's division, and she'll probably more over than most of the divas are. Definitely.
Obviously, it's just good for Summer Rae as well to have somebody actually have a feud with that isn't involving Fandango. No, she was involved with the Miz, wasn't she? For all of 3 weeks.
And then nothing happened.
That worked out well. Moving on, we had a couple of straightforward matches. A nice wee exchange between Sheamus and Neville. Sheamus didn't get a televised entrance, which was strange for the Money in the Bank. What did he? I don't remember.
Because I marked it twice because it's the best entrances.
I never remember seeing it.
You know what I do now? I look every week now to make sure they time it right.
Did Sheamus come out second? Yeah, that's
Neville came out first with the pyro and stuff like that. Sheamus came out. I timed it to make sure the light shined on him at the right time to make the entrance perfect. Always fine. I'm like, best two entrances.
Yeah, I must have missed that then. Anyway, the match itself was pretty straightforward. Sheamus being dominant, obviously, as he is. I liked the finish though. I was really impressed with the finish. Counters the Red Arrow, just knocks him off the top rope by hitting the top rope. Bro kick out of nowhere. Brilliant. Shows that you can put anybody down with it and it can be hit in a split second. So I don't think it was a negative for Neville because he was quite competitive throughout the match as well. Just hope that these two fall into a feud at some point, not necessarily with each other, but because I think the two of them need to be on the SummerSlam card, especially Sheamus, and they just need to really capitalise on the momentum of Neville before it because it feels like if they don't do something with him soon, like a serious feud, he'll just be another guy on the roster.
Instead of going for the new sensation, he's just the sensation. But a few things I did like in the match was a small thing where just before they went to the break, Sheamus goes out to the ring, immediately grabs his briefcase and just holds on to his briefcase. It's just like, you can't get me and this is mine. I'm still the Money in the Bank. Just highlighting that fact. But I noticed this in commentary as well. They name dropped Randy Orton, who obviously we haven't seen for a couple of weeks. So I'm assuming that's probably a Sheamus goes and they'll build him up strong before they either face off at Battleground or if they keep pulling them off television, then I'd be okay with it for building up to SummerSlam. Gives you another kind of high profile-ish match. Just hope they add that stipulation because the matches, as we've seen in Raw, are kind of stale, repetitive, and maybe just giving them a little gimmick to the match might bring something out.
That's thing. Obviously, they had the match on Raw a couple of weeks ago. So it's just interesting to see if that is what they do follow up with. They're going to need to have a good storyline because their matches are not interesting. Even with them, because before now it had always been Orton as the heel and Sheamus as the babyface. Obviously, they didn't have much interaction when Sheamus first debuted. So with that dynamic, you hope their matches differ from the formula they've used in the past. Otherwise, it'll be a total turn off of a feud. After this, we had Jack Swagger on Raw, which was a great sight to behold. Unfortunately, he jobbed out quick time to King Barrett, who's now demanding that people bow before him. It seems it's a bit wayward at this stage. They're giving him wins, but I don't see the point. Doesn't seem like there's anywhere that they're going.
I could pick this thing apart so many ways. First off, Jack Swagger, it's a jobber entrance. The camera pans to him. He just looks dead inside, as if there was no passion. Although, in saying that, I thought he actually had a good match. Well, for what it was, I thought he'd done alright. I thought he looked like a good threat against Wade Barrett. And it's set up that the Bullhammer can be hit anywhere. But I just think Jack Swagger's probably on his last legs. You can't have a guy that size, a former world champion, jobbing like that. I just don't get, like, obviously the building Barrett up, but if he's meant to be in a feud with R-Truth, where was Truth? Are we not getting any silly comedy segment with Truth? You know, I was expecting Truth to come out, do something silly, and Swagger win by a roll-up or something, but I don't think it really done anything. I think it just kind of... The only thing it really made people talk about was, Jack Swagger's still on the roster. That's literally it. It never really helped anything else, in my opinion.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes... And that's a case where you'd rather have just seen a promo building towards a match of some sort than just squashing somebody quick time. But again, we know that he's got a lot of potential. In fact, they both got a lot of potential. Just it seems that Swagger's been wasted at this point, and you hope that they can recover Barrett before they make him even more irrelevant. This was followed by the cluster of a main event that we had that became a no disqualification tag match throughout the show. Or even at the start. I can't remember if they said there was no DQ at the start. I think they did. So we had a brawl between everybody, authorities involved in that. Then all of a sudden it became a tag match at some point before Bray Wyatt interfered, and then it just devolved into chaos again. Not really anything to note here other than Jamie Noble continually selling his ribs the entirety of the time he was outside the ring and being shy to ever get involved in anything, which was fine. Sold his legit broken ribs. Very clear that this was just done to make the authority look strong again, and robbed us of seeing the almost additional paint job on a car that we get.
I think it wasn't just the authority it was made to look strong. I think definitely made to look Roman Reigns look really, really strong. Like, there was a beatdown of Lesnar, and then this was probably like 10 times worse, and he was still coming back. The only thing I was really curious was when all this beatdown was happening, it's like, is Dean Ambrose dead? Because
he thought it was a ladder match, that's how he couldn't get back in the ring.
Because I was looking on the beatdown, I'm like, is he like went up? Is he curtailed it to the back? And then you just see the camera panning, and he's like out to the side, just lying down. I'm like, oh, he's still there. He's still there. He's just had one of the guys where he's been punched and he's out for like 5 minutes. But no, I just think it was built to make Roman Reigns look really strong, but not in a sense where he's doing it in a match. So it's not as bad when it's in a segment like that. And just a case of obviously, again, building up Wyatt's heat with him, and he's screwed him over again. But again, as much as it all is, like we're saying, it's the Roman Reigns show, again, making Seth Rollins, look more stronger at the match against Brock Lesnar, and again showing a united authority.
Definitely, they did it really well. It was just a shame that the Wyatt interference was really obvious, and you knew it was coming. Again, Dean Ambrose disappeared for far too long, and I just hate this, how it's like he's there to make Roman look strong as well. Like, he always needs Roman's help, and I'm fine with it though. And they're actually taking their time with Roman now, and they're not shoving him into the main event scene or anything like that. They're continuing this rivalry against the authority. I just feel though the authority needs to end at some point. I mean, fair enough, they've had Triple H and Stephanie off of television recently, and that helps it flow a wee bit better, I think, especially if they're only involved in a backstage segment or two. I just feel like Roman needs to move on. I mean, he's got a feud against Bray Wyatt, but he's still feuding with authority, and I don't see it ending well for Bray Wyatt, sadly. Just feel like he's going to end up losing to Roman Reigns again, and then be left in limbo waiting for another feud.
I think the good thing you can take about it is slowly but surely you're again seeing a bit more character development for Roman Reigns, like the small backstage things like rage, where it's like Bray Wyatt slowly messing with his head, and that's kind of like wee things like that is going to get people like ourselves behind Roman Reigns a little bit. But I just feel it's a shame it's going to come at the detrimental effect of Bray Wyatt, who's somebody that really needs a victory. I mean, this is a guy with stress. 4 or 5 months ago was facing The Undertaker, and we were thinking, could he beat The Undertaker? And now you look at it and go, nah. He probably couldn't beat some average face mid-carder, you know. It's just... I think
he might be able to squash Mark Henry. That's a push.
I just think he needs a victory, and he needs... Especially if they want to turn him into an Undertaker-like figure, then he needs protected.
He just needs to look dominant. He's not looked dominant in about a year. Just absolute travesty, to be quite honest, how poorly booked he's been. But nah, again, just need to wait and see the pay-per-view, see what happens there. Maybe he does beat Roman Reigns, maybe he fucks him about, I don't know.
And see, the thing is, if he beats Roman Reigns, right, you always need like a really big villain for your Superman to conquer. So if he beats Roman Reigns, and then Roman Reigns is like, well, how can I do this? Obviously, then Bray Wyatt's seen as a bigger threat. So then when Roman conquers him at SummerSlam, for example, and say some sort of gimmick match, then, you know, you get a bigger payoff, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And benefits both wrestlers.
Exactly. Just hope that's the way they go with it. Again, such a difference that it's a slow and steady build to a pay-per-view and not rushed. So I mean, Battleground's still 2 weeks off, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. The build's been fine, and I think we'll get some really good matches with some story actually built into it this time. Just means it's 2 weeks where we've only got Raw to talk about with, so just need to hope that something big happens, or we'll need to talk about something else.
Well, to be fair, next week we do have the show in Japan as well.
True, but I mean, how much that's actually going to be on the stream?
I know,
on network.
Nothing's ever been announced how long it's going to be, what matches. I think the only match we're guaranteed to see is Brock and the NXT title. We've never been fully told what we're going to see.
See, even if they just did, because I mean, a Lesnar match isn't going to be long. Even if they just had an hour, I mean, because I don't want to, no offence, but like, I'm not interested in seeing Cena and Dolph Ziggler tag against Kane and Wade Barrett. Not really that interested in that.
Because there is, in our opinion, you look at that, there's no storyline behind that at all.
No, there's no storyline behind 90% of this stuff. I mean, Brock Lesnar's facing Kofi Kingston.
Why? That's it. No, I know what you mean. No, but it'll be interesting to see if there is much that we can, you know, end up talking about. But it could end up being a case where it's literally 20 odd minutes on Kevin Owens versus Finn Balor, and where that leaves NXT and where it leaves the US Championship feud as well.
Exactly. I think that's really the crux of the whole show. Brock Lesnar's on it, so we need to promote him because he's the biggest star, really. And the NXT title's going to be on it. I'm hoping that the NXT title is the main event of the show, though, and no Brock Lesnar squashing Kofi Kingston.
It's really interesting, but they're obviously like promoting those two matches. Cena's on the card as well, and I think they're maybe just kind of hiding that fact so he could maybe be a factor in the NXT title match.
Quite possibly. Be interesting to see how it pans out, though. Also interested to see what the crowd's like in Japan for a WWE show. Apparently it's still not sold out. But then again, it's one of those things, isn't it?
It's a really big arena. I don't know I know it's a sumo hall, but I don't know how much it holds or whatever.
Nah, not really. It's a couple of thousand, I'm sure. Nothing major though, nothing like a Tokyo Dome or anything like that. But no, it'll just be interesting to see how that show pans out, especially being able to get to watch a live WWE event at a reasonable time here. You know what I mean? On a Saturday. Which
would normally be the football slot, before the football slot, but it is something different. And it'll be, as you say, we've been at a normal time, it'll be a lot easier to kind of digest and kind of get a head
around. It'll be much more enjoyable as well, not having to stay up to you on time to actually catch some WWE. The only other thing, as we discussed previously, is we'll take our own look at the roster. Maybe next week or the week after. Well, the week after all of the build up to the Battleground, so maybe next week, and discuss maybe how we would go about bringing back a brand split, best way to utilise the talent, a sort of a mini draft. Discuss that next week. Sort of go away for having a 2 hour review of wrestling, and just discuss a wee bit about wrestling, our opinions on wrestling. But again, that's for next week. So if you enjoyed us just giving random opinions at the start of the show about TNA and what we thought about their booting and how their characters are developed and stuff like that, we'll be a bit more like that next week. Of course, we'll still discuss Raw, what happens on that, looking towards Battleground. And if there's any major developments regarding TNA and Global Force, I'm pretty sure we'll discuss that as well. I know that Ring of Honor have got some bigger shows and a big pay-per-view coming up as well. If that seems worth discussing, maybe touching that too. But anyway, this has been One Hour Broadway. You can catch us on the usual places, Twitter and Facebook at One Hour Broadway. You can also subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher under the same name. And if you prefer a regular old direct download, you can get that at onehourbroadway.tk. That's been it from myself and Maxie, and thanks for listening.